Hi everyone, in this tutorial we are going to see how to insert, update and delete data, interact with data in databases, and we are going to insert data to the tables, also update some rows and delete some rows. So this tutorial is a continuation of the previous two. So in the first one we installed MySQL and Postgres and also inserted data to play with, and we started playing with the data in part 2 of the video of the tutorial series. So in part 2 we saw how to get data using URI parameters, query parameters and headers, and in this one we are going to see how to use URI parameters and query parameters for data insertion, deletion and also updating. So I have Endpoint Studio open here. Let's create a Mule project, new Mule project, and let's call it update, delete, insert HTTP module. We search for listener, drag and drop it here, and do the configuration. So the listener name here is, let's give it data insertion, deletion and updating, and specify the connector configuration. The default configuration with port 8081 is fine. Just click OK, and base path, let's just call it MyDB, my database. So save this, and and then we go to the databases module. Under databases module we have this insert operation. We drag and drop it here if we want to insert data. Okay, and then insert, the name is insert data. Connection, I want to connect to MySQL, so MySQL connection, and add Maven dependency. Click finish, then specify here the host is localhost, the port is 3306, user in my case is root, and the database that we created before is Northwind. So Northwind, and my tutorial password, I can get it here. It is this one. So come here and paste it here. Test connection. So test connection. Yep, connection successful now. So the first thing, let us send query parameters. From the query parameters, try to insert data to the database. So in here we have MyDB, and in here let's write the query parameter. So I'm in the SQL code. What we do is insert into table name. Let's choose one table, a simpler one. So under the Northwind database we have different tables, and this, for example, some of them have many columns. If you can see, press this category, it has these columns, and customer, it has even more columns. I just want to try with a table that has one of the columns. Yeah, this should be fine. Region, so okay, it has only few records, so I'm going to go with this one. Okay, so here let's get back to Anypoint Studio and insert into the table name is region, and the table columns are region ID and description ID. So to insert the data, what we do is we type first insert into the table name, then the column names, which are region ID and region description, and then values, the values for region ID and for the region description. So I can just bring this in and paste them here and add colon in front of them to mean that the values for this one they will come from the input parameters. So in here in the input parameters, press this fx to change it to an expression and create named values. So the region ID will be, in this case, if we are submitting a query parameter, region ID will be it will be attributes dot query params dot region ID, for example, if we are passing it as region ID, and the region description, let me put this in a new line. The region description will be simply attributes dot query params dot region description, and then close it with bracket with curly brace. So so the same as what we did in the previous tutorial. This is, in this case, since we are inserting, before it was select query, now it is insert into, we are inserting into this region table. We want to insert new values and pass them, so submit it from Postman or from Arc. So we have insert into the table name, region, and the columns region ID and region description, and their values will come from this one, from the input parameters, from the code we have in this input parameters, and in the input parameters it expects from the values to come from query parameters. So attributes.query params.region ID will be the region ID. Attributes.query params.region description will be this is type, there is description. Okay, and this one will be the region description. Okay, so now if we save this, and we can add a logger also. So underscore logger, bring it here so that it prints to the console what we have passed. So what we have submitted, change this to expression, then let's print you submitted what were the columns? They were region ID and region description. Okay, region ID and region description of the following. Can do like this, then concatenate to that attributes dot query params dot region ID, then concatenate to this, separate them by comma, and again attributes dot query params dot region description. So we save this. Let me make sure there isn't any typo here. So you submitted region ID and the region description. Can separate this of the following. So we are concatenating this string. This will be printed to the console. This string and attributes.query parameters.region ID concatenate to that comma, separated by comma, and concatenate to that attributes.query parameters.region description. Okay, so yeah, this is our logger. Now if I run this select star from region, it shows me these values. Now I will deploy this, and then we are going to submit. Oh, by the way, here I have to change. Let me change the method under this listener. If we go to advanced, let's make this to, since we are inserting, so let's change this to put the method. Let's make it put method, and let's run the project. In the previous tutorials I was doing Postman to submit queries, but we can also use arc. So I have arc here, and once that submitted 8081. Okay, once this deploys, we are going to submit queries from arc or advanced REST client by MuleSoft, and it should print to the console the region ID and the region description that we submitted. And also when we run this code in Workbench, we should see more number of rows. Okay, so it has deployed. Now we go to arc and change this to put, and the name is, I don't need headers, we are not using headers now. The name, the path is my DB, and then to pass query parameters we start with question mark and region ID. Let's call our region ID 1000, and so we use ampersand for and region description. Let's call it what are the regions that are not there here. So we have eastern, western, northern, southern, south central. Let's call it northwestern, for example. Northwestern. So now I will submit this, and so we see response 200. That means it worked fine. And we go here, it should tell us the region ID and region description we submitted. So here it says you submitted region ID and region description of the following: 1000 northwestern. And if we go here and refresh it, we should see the region ID and the region description that we inserted. Okay, so we see 1000 northwestern. So this is how we can submit using query parameters. Now let's change it to URI parameters. So come here, change this to my DB, change it to use forward slash, and within curly braces we put let's put region ID, again another curly braces, region description. So region ID and region description. Okay, so save this, and in the logger now I should use not query params but rather URI params. So the query I change it to URI, basically URI params. This one also query params, I change it to URI params. Done. And here the same way, so the values it should get them from URI params, not from query params. URI params. We do like this. So now let's see if we can insert other data. So this is put, but here rather than putting this question mark and so on, what we do is just forward slash the region ID forward slash the region description. So let's put a region ID of 2000 and a region description of Southwestern, for example. So you see, these are our URI parameters, and our log should extract this URI parameters. It should tell us you submitted a region ID of 2000 and a region description of Southwestern. So submit this. Okay, we see the response is 200, and if we come to the console, what do we see? Here you submitted the region ID and the region description of 2000 and Southwestern, so we should see 2000 and Southwestern in the table. Let's come back to Workbench, see if it is inserted. There is no 2000 region ID of 2000, but now when we run this, when we refresh it, we should see 2000. Okay, 2000 Southwestern is there. So that is how we insert using URI params. Now let's see how we can do the same thing using headers. So what we do is basically, if it is headers, let's edit this. We don't need this URI params, and save it. Now our loggers, rather than attributes.URI parameters, they will be just attributes.headers. Let me increase the size here. So change URI parameters to headers here. This one also the same way, we change it to headers. Save this. Done. Go to this insert SQL query, the same thing here, headers, in the same way here, headers. Save this also. So now if we go to the console, let's give it okay, you see it is updating our new inputs, and we can get back to advanced REST client. And so we don't specify URI params in this case. We specify headers, we add them here. Let's add region ID, let me give it 5000, and add region description. The region description, let's give it something new. Northeastern. No, we don't have northeastern, so I can give it northeastern. So we specify our headers this way, and then MuleSoft we can access them in MuleSoft here using attributes.headers the header name. So let's submit this. Let me clear this first. Let's submit this. So once we submit that, and if I come here and refresh this, I should see an a region ID of 5000 with region description of northeastern. Okay, so submit this. So the response is 200. It worked fine. If we come here, let's see, you submitted region ID and region description of the following 5000 northeastern are here. Now I can refresh this and let's see if there is northwestern there. So you see there is northwestern here. So this is how we interact using query parameters, URI parameters, and headers. Now let's see how we can update and also delete records just using let's say using URI parameters, because it is the same thing. The only modification is the SQL operation in the SQL code. Otherwise, the way we access the parameters that we pass from Arc will be the same in this case. Okay, so come here and I will change this to okay, this is region ID, the URI param, and add another thing, also another one, also the region description. Okay, logger, we will modify our logger also. So the headers, we are going to change them to URI params. Here also the same way, URI params. Save this, and now our SQL operation will change to update, not insert. So delete this, and if we go to databases, what do we have? What operations do we have? We have update here, so we bring it here and do our connections the same way like what we did before. Connect MySQL. We have the Maven dependency already, and this is localhost and 3306. Root is a user, and I will bring my password, and my database name is Northwind test connection. Okay, connection successful. So now let's see if we can update the records. So to do the code for updating is we start with update, then table name is region, and we want to set region ID to region ID. So we will put here colon region ID, and okay, so what we want to do actually is for a given region ID we want to update the region description. Let's do that. So set region description to what the region descriptions do we have. So for 5000 we are giving it northeastern, for example. Let's call it just central. So here we do update the region table, set the value for region description to central, where region ID or we should not have the code actually. We want to submit this from Postman or Arc. So let's give this region description where region ID equals to region ID. So what we are saying here is update the region table by setting the region description to the value that we are going to submit as a region description, where the region ID value in the table is the region ID that we are going to submit, and the values that we will submit, we can access them from here, from the input parameters. So we create a named lookup or like dictionary, and region ID is URI params dot region ID, and region description is URI params dot region So let me make sure there isn't any typo here. So update the region table, and we are going to set the region description value to the region description that we are going to pass, that we are going to submit. For the records where the region ID is the same as the region ID that we will submit, and the values for this region description and region ID, we get them from here as URI params dot region ID and URI params dot region description. So save this. Okay, let's see until updates it. Okay, so it has made the changes, it has updated it. Now let's go to Arc and remove this. And so here our project, our path, we are specifying this as URI params. We have region ID, the order will be region ID followed by region description. So we come here, so 5000, when the region ID is 5000, which is here, we want it to be central. For example, let's submit this. It seems there is some error somewhere, and region URI params dot region ID, unable to restore reference of URI params. Okay, let's get back and see, maybe there is some typo here. If I come to the console, what do I see? We submitted the region ID and the region description of the following: 5000 central, so the logger is fine, and attributes.uri params.region ID. Okay, so there is some typo here, where region ID is region ID and region description is region description. Okay, if I go here, attributes.ri params, do I have attributes.ri params? Oh, yeah, this is the problem. It should be attributes.ri params, the same thing, attributes.ri params here also. Okay, so now let me save this, come back to the console, saving the changes, and now it should work, I hope. Submit this. Yep, now it worked. The response is 200. Now what we are saying is, here if you come, this ID of 5000 with region description northeastern, now it should be updated to central. So press here, so it has updated it to central. So that is how we update. We can update also, let's say 2000, another one. Now let's update 2000 to unknown. So change this to 2000 and the ID 2000 and update it to unknown. Submit. Okay, if we come here and rerun this 2000, currently you see it is southwestern, but if we run it, it should change to unknown. You see, it has changed to unknown. So this is how we update records in the database using MuleSoft. And next, let's see how we can delete records. So to delete records, the only change I think in here, we don't, this one we can use headers, URI parameters, or query parameters. It is the same. Let's just do with URI parameters. The only thing we do here is this update operation from database. We change it by delete operation. So we have here, bring it here, and let's call it delete records connection. The same thing, connecting to the same table, the same database. Localhost 3306 root my password, and my database is Northwind. Test connection. Okay, cool. And to delete rows, like let's delete cases where we have some region ID and the region description. So what we do is we write it, the SQL query text, we write it like this: delete delete from the table name, which is region, delete from region where region ID is the region ID that will pass, and region description is also the region description. Region description that we will submit. Come here the same way like before, create a dictionary, and region ID is always we use attributes. The next we are using URI params dot region ID comma region ID and the value for region description should be attributes dot attributes, okay, control, okay, region attributes dot, okay, URI params dot region description. Then we close it using curly braces. So region ID is attributes.uri params.region ID, and the region description is attributes.uri params.region description. So save this. What do we have here? We have, yep, this attributes.uri params.region ID, and in the log we have, okay, we don't need to change this. So now let's see if we can delete what we inserted, like region ID of 5000 and region description of central. Let's remove it from the table. 5000 and change this to central. Submit. Okay, let's see what we have in the console. Here is there any typo? Okay, you submitted region ID and the region description of 5000 and central, so this is fine. And if we come here, so we see 5000 region ID of 5000 and the region description of central is there. Now if we refresh it, it should go away. Yep, it has been deleted. We can also delete what we inserted, 2000 and unknown, or let's say we insert region ID, we pass a region ID of 2000 and the region description of Eastern, then it should not delete it in this case. So 2000 and this one Central, that's fine. So the region ID of 2000 now should not be deleted because region description is not central, it should rather be unknown. So submit this, and okay, come here to Workbench, and when we refresh it, nothing should happen. I mean, 2000, this row of region ID of 2000 and the region description of unknown should be there. So it is there, but if the region description now, if we change it to unknown, it will go out, it will be deleted. So change this one, the second URI param, to unknown. Click submit, and if we come here now to Workbench and rerun it, now the region ID of 2000 should not be there, it should go away. Yep, it is not there. So in this tutorial we saw how we can insert, update and also delete records using URI parameters, query parameters, and headers. And in the next tutorials we are going to see how we can interact with the databases using other functionalities.